What's up? Travel Chronicles, chapter 117, I believe. And today, I got some interesting things that happened there at the end of the week, last week. One, got me a new phone holder for the car, so it's up a little bit, maybe too close. We'll see. And the thing that happened was the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, in a sense, right? So Roe v. Wade's a ruling from the 70s. It has mainly to deal with abortion, although I think there are some protections in there for doctors who perform abortions. And I think the impetus for this, I mean, the Supreme Court, I don't think was just sitting around going, hey, I wonder if there's any rules we ought to overturn here. And I think the impetus was a case that was brought to the court from Mississippi about abortions at the 15-week period. Like, they wanted to limit abortions to less than 15 weeks, and I believe the original Roe v. Wade was like around 24 weeks or something. I'm not 100% sure. You know, don't quote me on any of this. But however they ruled on the Mississippi case was, yeah, it's not cool to have abortions after that. Shouldn't do it. And I think just some portion of Roe v. Wade got turned over. I don't think the entire thing did. And regardless if it did, I think what it did was put the onus back on the states to make a decision on whether they wanted abortion to be legal or not, right? Like, the federal government wasn't going to come in and say, well, you can do this or you can't do that. And that's kind of what they've done this whole time. Like, as long as I've been alive, abortion has been allowed by the Supreme Court, you know, Roe v. Wade. But it's never really made a difference. You know, people run on pro-choice, pro-life, but ultimately nobody does anything, right? Nobody puts any laws in place to outlaw it or to 100% allow it. The only dispute in elections, to me, in the last 20 years have been whether the abortion should be federally funded, right? So if someone goes to Planned Parenthood, which gets a grant, I think, from the federal government, should they be performing abortions, or should women be allowed to take advantage of that system to have an abortion? And that's kind of like the only line in the sand that's really been drawn in the last 20 years. To me. You know, I don't... Obviously, there were bombing of clinics before, you know, people trying to blow up doctors that were performing the abortions. You know, look, here's my take on it. I have a lot of empathy for any woman that decides that her best option is to terminate a pregnancy. You know, and however that pregnancy came about, whether it was planned, unplanned, you know, things have gone south during the pregnancy. There's tremendous risk to the child, or herself. Whatever the reason is, that in her mind, the option that she has to exercise is to terminate that pregnancy. And, you know, do I think life begins here? Do I think it begins there? You know, from the moment of conception, or from the moment of sustainability outside the womb, or birth. I don't think you should do it. Like, if you could talk to anybody, it's like, no, like, I know it'd be a struggle, I know it's gonna be hard, you know, don't do it. You know, that's my opinion. It's like, you know, don't do it. But, you know, we talk about equality and different things, and you know, the argument is my body, my choice, you know, for people who are pro-choice. But ultimately, you know, there is no equality in this situation. You know, the female holds all the cards. You know, if a guy impregnates a woman and she's like, I'm going to get an abortion, he can't be like, no, you're not. No, you're not. We're not doing that. And vice versa. If the guy's like, we need to have an abortion, you know, she could still have that baby. You don't have any say. So, we want to talk about things being equal. There's zero equality here. The women are 100% in charge of whatever happens here. So, let's get that out of the way. And also, when it comes to live births of human beings on the planet, I'm pretty sure right now women hold a slight advantage, maybe like 100% of those. So, we want to talk about equality in the workplace, equality in education and stuff. And it's like, look, there are certain things women can do that men absolutely cannot do. We cannot. So, and I think the whole thing is around that, right? So my other opinion here is that the federal government, or whatever the leading entity of a group or a nation of people should be, is to preserve as much life as possible of their citizenry. It's the only thing that makes sense for the government. The government shouldn't allow people to kill themselves or selectively kill potential citizens. It doesn't make any sense. Their goal is to have as many people as possible, in case there's a conflict or something else, or a pandemic, that you have a group of people that are going to survive and keep your society afloat. That's the idea. That you can weather any storm that's out there because you have enough people. And right now, the United States, I think there's been a tipping point reached in the last 10 years or so for a lot of countries that are now experiencing negative birth rates. And I think the canary in the mine was Japan. Japan has very, very limited oh gosh, I can't think of the word. Isn't that horrible? But they don't allow other people. The United States is like, send us your poor, your weak, your huddled masses. We'll take anybody. Anybody can migrate here. We'll take anybody. And Japan's like, nah, we're good. We don't want you. So immigration, that's the word, immigration. And their immigration policies are, we don't want you at all. And it's like 3% immigrants is all that's in the Japanese culture. And it's all just kind of, right there. And they've built themselves up into this technological giant. And if you want to contribute to their society, you have to work a tremendous amount of hours and get educated and all those types of things. And that takes time, right? You can't work 60 hours a week and then go home and have a family and do lots of family stuff. And, people value that climb of the corporate ladder, so they want to do that rather than have a family. It's kind of you get down to your choices here, right? And the same thing's kind of happened in America with feminism, the rise of feminism. Women wanting to get out in the workplace and do more. If they're working hard, it's hard to have babies. There's certain professions, teachers, maybe in the nursing profession and stuff, where you can, take time off, have a baby, come back, and get right back into your same job. But if you're in a corporate position, or like a lawyer in a firm or something like that, it's more difficult to leave, have a baby, then come back and be in the same spot. You're going to be, down. So that's where the equality, or pay scales, or there's different pay for women and men. It's like a lot of that has to do with giving birth to children, because you're away from the job for a couple of months, depending on how long you stay with the baby. Maybe people are gone up to a year. So then you have a disparity of, well, they've both been out of school for a certain period of time, but their actual experience in the workplace is different. So the pay scale thing is not, it's really not a viable comparison, in my opinion. Unless you're looking at people straight out of college, what are you getting compared to what somebody else is getting? Once you get 10, 15 years down the line, life happens, and it's not a fair comparison, in my opinion, because once again, women are the only ones who can birth children. And I don't care what your definition of woman is, it's biological female. guess you could be an hermaphrodite or something, but however that works, you have the parts. You have to have the parts in order to do it. Anyway, so as women have ingratiated themselves into the workplace more and more and tried to fight up this corporate ladder the same as men, now they have less and less time to have kids, and the birth rate in America has dropped to the point where I think it's slightly below replacement level, right? I think you need 1.2 to adequately replace your citizenry. You know, we're essentially it's 2.4 for the female. I think she can't just replace herself; she has to replace her and the man. And if you want to do, you know, like a fun exercise, just think of like your immediate family, maybe, you know, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, you know, those types of things. How many kids have they had? Their kids, you know, how well has that replacement gone in your family, you know, for different areas, you know, because I think probably prior to the 60s or 70s, like every family was probably a net positive, and, you know, rarely was a family not having kids or only had one child. And now it's you know, much more common. People just want to, you know, have a kid, get it out of the way, you know, say they did their duty, or, you know, see how it goes, and it was like, we don't want any more of this, or they're just so locked into what they're doing that they don't want to have kids at all. And it's, you know, a fair choice. You know, you can't make people have kids, you know, that's for certain. But the issue now, and I think from a government standpoint, is you want to encourage that. Russia, and I can't remember the time frame, I want to say it's within the last decade, was offering pregnancy bonuses to people. So if they had a child, the child got to like their first birthday or 10 months or something like that, it was worth so many thousands of dollars. Like they would get a payment for having that kid. And if you think about it, the more people you have, it's more soldiers, it's more taxpayers, it's more, you know, teachers, nurses, you know, professionals. Yeah, you're going to have some people that don't contribute, but it's a small percentage compared to the people that are going to contribute, that are going to, you know, fill up your society. And you need people to backfill for your older generation that can no longer do, right? No matter what they contributed in their younger years, once they reach a certain age, you know, they want to retire, they want to take it easy, they can't keep up with the physical grind of things, you know, they can't perform things as well, and you want to take care of those people. And I think that's really the thing that Japan's getting hit hard with now, is like they do not have enough people to do the jobs. That's why a lot of people are working so many hours. But it's just a huge mess. But in my opinion, I think the federal government, their standpoint should be, we want as many people as possible. The reason that abortion was even allowed in the first place is kind of ludicrous to me. It's like, why would you even allow this? You shouldn't allow people to kill unborn children just from a government standpoint, because it's just, you know, silliness. But we've done so much silliness to allow people to feel good about things that I don't know that we're helping ourselves. You know, we need leadership that's kind of like a dad that realizes, you know, what's best for the kids. You know, you don't just let the kids run around and do whatever they want, and it's like, well, this will work out well. No, you need a little bit of discipline. You need to funnel the kids in a certain direction and tell them, like, you need to do this, you need to do that, you can do this, you can't do that. And you have to do that to have a functioning society. And right now we're kind of splintered, and our functionality is debatable at best, you know, especially going forward and dealing with things. I mean, you got people out there protesting like crazy. You know, for one, if someone really, really wanted an abortion right now in the United States, there's going to be places to get that abortion. There's going to be places. Texas did implement a law saying like if somebody went out of state to get an abortion after so many weeks or something, that people could rat on them and then they could get a bounty and sue somebody. Or, I mean, I hope that that's never done. I hope nobody ever acts on that, just because it's a horrible choice to send for somebody to have to make that decision in the first place, and then you're kind of piling on because of what your morals and principles are. Just be empathetic to the decision. If you don't want it to be allowed in your state, that's fine. You put the rules in place, put the laws in place, say it's not allowed. To me, from a government standpoint, I think that's the smart thing to do. But then you look at gun control and those things. That's the next argument. It's like, well, you don't control guns. People are out there killing each other with guns. From a government standpoint, I think they should also control guns. It's like, well, but it's the Second Amendment. I have the right to keep and bear arms. Like, that's fine. But, in the early days, when that was written, like, people had muskets and stuff. Like, if the government shows up to your door now and wants to annihilate you, like, you're going to get obliterated. Like, you're not making a last stand and fighting off the government with your AR-15, or even if you have an M16 at the house. They just roll up in a tank or some heavily armored vehicle, and they're just going to blast you out or shoot you with a rocket propelled grenade or something. Like, you're not withstanding that. So your right to keep and bear arms is, do you want to hunt? Do you actually hunt animals? Game hunt? If you don't, like, I question why you really need a lot of guns. It's like, I really like collecting guns. It's like, that's okay, I guess, but the benefit to you protecting yourself is minimal. I guess as long as there's a threat, maybe it keeps robberies and stuff down, because people are going to be less apt to break into a house. And even if you put the rules in place, if somebody wants a gun, they're going to be able to get a gun illegally, because people are still going to do that stuff. But having like a really difficult to get and have a lot of controls on, it's like, you got to really, really want this thing to get it. I think it's probably okay. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. I think from a government standpoint, I think you want that. It just can't be a overarching, hey, we're taking all your guns away or something like that, because then there would just be an uproar. But I think that's the stance the government should have as well. Well, there were some other things, to talk about on that same subject, but I'm getting kind of short on time here. So I think I'll just leave it at that for now. It's kind of a landmarkish day, but like I say, I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of change from a standpoint of the way things were before, because there was no federal law on the books. I don't think there's ever going to be. It pretty much comes down to the state and what they're willing to do or allow. And we're kind of in the same spot. And I think if somebody really wants an abortion, even a late-term abortion, some state is going to allow that in the U.S., where somebody can go to. It's going to be covered by insurance, all that other stuff. I would really like to see the government put more money into, helping kids, helping the youth, helping women that are maybe in that tough situation where they've had a child. And it's going to be difficult, but they had to do it now because you've restricted them. I would like to see them put money into that and into the education system to help these kids get a better start. Because it's throwing darts, right? It's a draft, right? You look at major sports; they want as many picks as they can. You want as many citizens coming out as possible, because you don't know if one of those could be a president or could be a leader in your country. I'll leave you with one final story. I think I can get it in here. I remember this from my youth, but the way the story goes is there was a person, I believe it was a woman, maybe it wasn't. Regardless, somebody was diagnosed with cancer, and they were gonna die shortly. And they started praying. They started praying to God, and they're like, God, if you could just please send a cure for cancer. It would be awesome. I'd really appreciate it. And it would guy's response was, "I did set a cure for cancer. It was abortion." Like, and I think the story was like, "You aborted it," and it was like, "Oh, whoops. I guess I shouldn't have done that." And it's like you don't know what the potential is in these kids. So that's what I'll leave with. Be careful, be COVID free, and just treat each other decently. Just because you disagree, there's no reason to yell in somebody else's face. The person that yells isn't the rightest, okay? The loudest person isn't the most correct. All right. Be careful, be COVID free. Later.